Hey everyone, TA Sam here again. It's time for part 2 of our 8-part Microsoft Word video. So in the last video, it was a very basic introduction, opening a document, saving, downloading, things like that. If you're confused on any of that, please go back and watch it. This video today will focus on basic Excel features. So create another blank document just to get going. And this video again will cover mostly just formatting. And so a basic report format for the most part is you want to use Times New Roman. You want to use a 12-point font. And then this is where it depends on the class. I think I remember a lot of my freshman classes like double-spaced. But if I remember correctly, around the time like junior year came up and you're really writing lab reports, you're going to switch that to single-spaced. And then if I remember correctly, the reason that a lot of instructors used to like double-spaced is because if you print out the document and turn it in, it makes it easy to make comments. But that doesn't really happen anymore. So I think a lot of people are switching to single-spaced. And then you might do left aligned. And again, this is what I think I remember doing for, until junior year, but then you're going to switch to justified. And so for those of you who are my students, I like single space justified. I think justified looks a lot cleaner and easier to read, but less space is fine too. So if we want to actually accomplish that, and you can see that I actually have that here already because I have changed my default settings. Which you can all do by the end of this series. I think for the most part, you're going to start off in calibrate size 11. And so, let's actually, I'm going to undo all that. I'm sorry about that. We're going to bring it back here. I'm going to show you step by step how to change it. So the first thing you talk about, of course, is font. So I already mentioned Times New Roman. So if you go up here, and again, this is in your home ribbon, and you can do that by hitting Alt-H, and there's a home ribbon right in here, and then you could do FF for changing the font, and you could type it out. Or you get this drop-down menu, you can see that there's all the recently used ones, and then there are a lot of fonts, and you can download more. So when you feel like procrastinating, you can play with your font all you want until you just decide to go back to Times New Roman. You actually see Times New Roman is, I can never get to it, is going to be all the way down here. And I didn't highlight anything. So again, you can do Alt-H, FF, and if you know you want to do Times New Roman, you can type it out and it'll do it for you. To do the size, you can also, again, we're going to highlight everything just so we affect it. Right here, you have ups and downs. You can see there's the hotkey right there for it as well. Or you can go in and hit with it. Again, for the most part, you're going to do size 12. Maybe for a header here, you'll do 14. Maybe if you have a table, you do size 10. But you really don't want to go below size 10 because otherwise you lose readability. Next, you have a couple different text effects you're going to see down here. You're going to see bold, italic, and underline. For those of you who haven't used Word, the hotkeys for those respectively are Control-B for bold, Control-I for italicized, and Control-U for underline. These can be useful for creating headers, also for creating figure captions and things like that. You can also see a strike through. I don't know why you have to use that, but it's right there for you as well. And then subscripts and superscripts. So as engineering students, you're going to use these a lot. And so let's say, I want to do Times New Roman 12. I could put a 12 in here. And if I want that to be superscripted, I could go here and bring it up there. Similarly, if I want maybe Times New Roman 12 like that. The hotkeys for that, and I always forget which one is which, but Control-Shift, Control-Shift plus is going to bring you to a superscript. And Control-Shift minus, Control plus. It's different for Google Docs. Control plus is going to bring you to a subscript, so you can remember those. And those are useful. So let's say, a good example of this would be if you're talking about like an electro potential, especially for like fuel cells. The subscript for that is E0. Or if you're doing subscript, you do that, and then there you go. There's your E0 for your electropotential. So again, just as an engineering math student, it's very useful. Moving forward, you can also see that there's a couple things you want to highlight or change your text color, so that those can be both found in here. So let's say you want to highlight things yellow. Again, you really shouldn't be turning in documents with yellow highlight, but they're useful if you're working in a team setting, which we'll talk about later, and you need to highlight stuff for somebody to go back later. or let's say we want to highlight it red for sign to fix. Again, the majority of the reports are going to be black and white. I can't think of any reasons off the top of my head why you need to do that for turning in something, but just if you need to, it's there. Now let's say I have a list here. Let's say I want to turn this into a bullet form. You can see in the paragraph subsection, again, you can do Alt H PG, and then that'll bring this whole option in here, or you saw that there were specific letters in there. You can do a bulleted list. So I think in Google Docs, remember, it's Control-Shift-8 to do a bulleted list. There's no similar hotkey for a bulleted list in Word, which is why it's so crucial to get used to using this Alt key to navigate around. But you see there's a bulleted list. You can hit a tab button and get a different document or get a different level, and keep going, whatever you want to do. You can also do a numbered list, and you do that by going again to here. You could do, you could change everything in this. You can play around with that on your own, increase the indent, decrease the indent, whatever you want to do. Oh, I forgot to talk about the justification. Right. And oops. And so if you want to change the way that your paragraphs are aligned, you can go down in here. And so there's a left align, center align. That's useful for doing figure captions and table captions, things like that. Right align, I don't know why you'd ever use that, but it's still there. And then justify is going to look, really nice. If you look here, you can see that I have the difference for like a justify sentence, which is up in here, and a left aligned over here. So I just think the justify looks a lot cleaner. The hotkey for that is Control-J. So you highlight your paragraph, Control-J. And just for those of you who don't know your keyboard shortcuts yet, I'm going to get that out of there. You can see you can hit Shift to highlight things. Shift Control and arrow key will get you to the next letter. Shift and then hitting either End if you're on the left, or on the left side, or Home if you're on the right side will highlight a whole thing. You can hit Control Shift up to get your whole paragraph, and then you can hit Control J to justify, Control left to left align, things like that. And let's see the alignment. Let me see what else we have to cover. That's everything I want to cover except for one last thing I just want to show you. And this is where, again, I encourage you to start early, similar to the Alt keys, because it'll be harder to adjust this later on. Let me get these out of here. Actually, I'm going to keep those in there. Is this little guy right here. And what this guy's going to do is it's going to show you all your different, I don't even know what these are called. Well, these are personally called paragraph markers. But I guess just your text symbols, these are all the things that Excel has going on. And this makes, especially when you get into a report, it makes reviewing your documents so much easier. It checks, you can see there's a spacing in between each one of them, and so you can check to make sure you don't have two spaces. You can make sure your paragraph spacing is consistent, so it means you don't have like one paragraph here, two paragraphs here. And this gets very useful for when you're trying to, put figures and graphs into reports. You make sure that you have consistent spacing between them, because inconsistent spacing there just makes it look bad. I'll keep it on as we go, and it just builds up a lot of things, especially in terms of trying to make like a cover page table of contents and things like this. There are things like that, excuse me. This character will make it so much easier to have on. And actually, that reminded me, I have one last thing. It's just on paragraphs. So here we go. You can see there's a nice little gap in there again, because I've already altered my settings. But what you can do is we'll highlight this whole thing. Actually, we'll highlight the whole document. And if you go over to your paragraphs or line spacing options, again, here's single spaced, double spaced, and you can see add space before paragraph and remove space before paragraph. So I have just a space after the paragraph on. And so you can see what that looks like. And then if you remove that, everything's just kind of bunched together. Or if you put one before paragraph, kind of spaces out more. You can go to line spacing options. And then this is where you see there's the alignment. But you can also see in here, and here's where it's important, is the spacing. So you always want to have a space after your paragraph, except for maybe very specific circumstances. And an 8-point space is pretty standard. If you want to increase that out a little more, you can do that, and you can see there it gets a little more spaced out. But again, try to keep it at the 8-point. And the other thing that's 8 point, excuse me, there we go. Sorry about that. And this is where if you're doing a table of references, you can have a hanging indentation. So there's a first line. We'll see what that looks like. And that's kind of more, what you see if you're reading a book and things like that. But where it's more useful for you is you can do a hanging. And so this is where you get that table of contents look. And we'll do that later. You can see there's your, you'd have your author, the journal title, and then the rest of the information, you'd have that automatically indented. So that's all I have for this video. Looking at my schedule, the next video is going to cover kind of reviewing. So this is going to be sharing documents with your teammates, how to comment, how to assign things to people, check for spelling, things like that. And as always, like, subscribe, share, whatever you want to do, and leave a comment, and I'll try to get back to you. Thanks.